What's up, team? I'm Leland Bruce with Sports Dissected, and I'm here with Roy Hotrabhvanon from PlayerData. How are you today?
Yeah, really good. Nice to be on here.
I'm excited to kind of get into hop into the weeds a little bit, learn a little bit about your history and also about the company. Um, and we'll kind of just discussing offline a little bit behind you, like your kind of setup. So you have the uniforms and or like the kits behind you, but then there's also a 3D printer. So that I think that kind of really speaks to who you are. Could you speak to who you are?
I had a sort of not a normal sort of entry into sport. I have a very sort of different background, non-traditional. So I started uni and I went to Edinburgh Uni to study computer science and electronics. And then when I joined uni, I had never played a sport in my life before. And I was your typical geek. And it was first year, and they have all these societies where you can go and try stuff. So, and there's this whole sports hall full of different sports that you can join the team, join the societies, or apply to join. I was like, okay, let's try something different. Went down the list, alphabetical order, and I went, well, American football is not for me. I was skinny and scrawny, and archery was next on the list. Fell in love with archery, and very quickly realized that I was deeply competitive. Like I never sort of discovered that before, and I really want to get better. Now, archery is not a particularly well-funded sport, so I had to get creative. So what I started doing was I started playing around with these sensors that I was building and I was learning as I was going through my degree, putting on my body and collecting data to help me get better. And I started getting really good off the back of my own sort of sensors that I built. Essentially got to international level and competed for my home country, Thailand. I was going to go to Rio 2016, but unfortunately was in a car accident a month before, which sort of completely took me out of it. Yeah.
What, let's step back a little bit. What makes you want to put the sensors on? Like, how did you know that that would give you like the leg up? Like, what were you trying to achieve? What were you trying to uncover there?
I was trying. I was trying to build. I didn't have a coach. I was trying to build my own coach.
Okay.
So I built a suit basically that would collect all my data of like how I shot the shot, and it would analyze it and give me feedback about the areas that I could improve. Essentially, I was trying to build myself a feedback tool that would just help me get better, and I got quite successful at it.
Do you think that So I'm always curious, or like I'm always intrigued by people that have a expertise in one area, but then they transfer to another area, but they still can like apply that. And feel like that kind of came from kind of your background. If you grew up, doing archery, like, do you think you would have had the mind to say, "Huh, let me train myself, let me figure out these data points, or like let me figure out my form," or do you think you would have just been like with a traditional coach doing like the traditional model or traditional things?
I think I was put into a situation whereby I had to get creative
Yeah.
to get better. And, back to that competitiveness, I was competitive. I wanted to get better. And I was just put in a situation where, well, look, I've got, I've got my tools, my knowledge. How would I solve the problem? And that's how I solved it. Like no one told me how to solve it. I had to work it out for myself. And I think that actually sort of that whole synthesis of coming into and starting working in this industry, building a whole career out of it so far, of being a complete outsider to this industry and going, right, how would I apply what I know from completely different background to what's traditional, and how will I help coaches and athletes solve the problems? And I think that has been sort of one of those sort of most powerful things that we have done in building PlayerData is having that different perspective and bring
Yeah.
people together with a different perspective.
How important is having that or let's step back. Do you think you would have, if you had uncovered your competitive nature, do you think you would have gone as far as you have so far with player data?
I think I feel like I would have hoped to have realized, to have discovered it at some point, but I don't
Mhm.
know. This is the journey I'm on.
For sure.
Just taking it day by day. It's been intense, but it's great.
How how important is problem solving for entrepreneurs, for people starting businesses, and then obviously ultimately for you guys and for your organization? How important is problem solving?
It's fundamental to everything. Like every day we start up, I have a whole list of problems. It's problem after problem after problem. And like going through the whole startup journey, it's like a roller coaster. It's like you have some days where you have a huge win, and then the next day you have 10 losses. You just hope that the overall journey is on the up, but you just can't. You just have to keep sort of focused on the mission and what you're building for, the people you're working with, the people you're working for, um, and you're innovating for, and then just sort of keep sight of that goal.
What I've noticed in our short time together is how your creative and problem solving brain works, and also how um how cool you are under pressure. Because when we hopped on the call, we had like a little technical difficulties, and you're like, okay, we can do this, this, and that, and it's solved and it's fixed. You're like, this is an easy problem to fix. So like, I know you're good. Like I know.
Thanks. Thanks.
So
Thanks.
let's hop into the brand a little bit. What was kind of your purpose behind? So obviously you started off with doing archery, but kind of how did that transition into creating the company or
Yeah.
co-founding it?
So I think that going through that journey of building that tech, growing from beginner to international, it gave me a taste of that sort of journey that athletes aspire to go on to. You're passionate about a sport, you train, you reach the level you want to get. And what I saw along that journey was that there's a huge technology gap. When you're starting out, there's not all the technology was reserved. All the cool technology that could really help you improve was reserved for the elite. It was expensive. It was hard to use. You couldn't have access to it, and you had to be good to meet that level to get it. So it's kind of like it's gatekeeping. It's
Hmm.
completely gatekept. And I realized that there's a huge opportunity in a sport there's actually a lot more users in, football, soccer, um, to take the learnings that I developed and basically build a company that purely focused on innovating for the mass market, grassroots teams, semi-pro teams, anybody who has that dream or that passion. They should have access to the same tools that a Premier League team has access to. There's no reason for it. It should be easy to use. They should be able to get the same insights, and it should be affordable. So we set out to flip the script to to democratize access to performance data at a large scale.
How has it been accepted in the market?
Pretty good. We have we have uh, 40,000 users now across 1,500 teams, two offices, our headquarters in Edinburgh, office in Philadelphia. We service teams all the way from sort of grassroots youth teams in the middle of rural Scotland to the Premier League now. So it's actually it's incredible now that we've been able to grow from and now reach the top. And the greatest feeling I get is that I can say now that to any sort of local team that we work with, you're using exactly the same technology as a Premier League team. Exactly the
Now
same technology.
that's amazing. I'm just thinking about just growing up playing sports. If you tell me that I get to use the same equipment as
Yeah,
my favorite professional players, I'm all in.
yeah. It's incredibly rewarding, and it's part of the reason why the team here at Player is so passionate at what we do.
How are you able to like you said democratize it? How are you able to make it to where everybody across the board could have access to it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's being creative and problem solving. So making products generally sort of the way things go in sort of product development is that if something is hard to use and difficult and clunky, it means that an engineer or a company out there didn't spend time or solve the hard problems to make it easy to use. We do that at PlayerData. We care about that deeply, and we spend a lot of time solving hard problems to make, you know, elite level tech really, really easy to use.
Yeah. Our I'll take me back to the archery days. That system that you had then, are you still using any of those like philosophies that you learned then? Are you using obviously not the technology, but like are the concepts still in use or is it completely has it been a complete 180?
Um, the sensor technology is there's some sensors that we use, but actually the thing that we carried over and I learned very, very early on, well before I started PlayerData, was how to fail fast. Was
Mm.
how to try something, try a problem, and try and fail forward, learn something, and try and iterate again. So when I was building all my archery stuff, I had like a new prototype every other week. I was just constantly trying, failing, iterating, building, and we've taken that concept to building PlayerData. When we build up products, I have on my desk here like 11 different versions of our indoor product. You know, sometimes they'll last a day, sometimes they'll last a couple of weeks, and before we change it. But like we're on constantly innovating and just try, fail, learn, move forward.
How often are you personally like hands-on with the actual product?
Yeah, it's been the last year of my life. I've been working with the team at PlayerData on across sort of the hardware, the firmware. My specialty is the hardware, the physical, and electronic side. That's what I own at PlayerData. So yeah, it's constant. I've got my 3D printer at the back. I've got my microscope here on my right. Like it's, I'll be business meeting in this seat, working on electronics on my right seat.
Could you take me through, like you said, you have the a few of the devices in front of you. Could you show me how it's kind of evolved and what like maybe some of the parts that you kind of worked on and fixed and to kind of refine it to where it is now?
Yeah, of course. I have a couple versions here I can run through. I don't have the full portfolio.
For sure.
Um, so this was our earliest prototype of
Okay.
the indoor unit. Now, the idea was, right, how do we make something, we want to make it super compact, super portable, and we were going to stack them together into a little case that fits into a water ball pocket so that coach could take it around. Most backpacks have water ball pockets, so that was the concept from this design. We're now at this design, which is even smaller than, we decided to go with this design because it's a lot smaller than the little tripods, and it's fits in different mounting mechanisms. So we can put it on a tripod, we can mount on a wall, we can put it on little suction cups, and it's much more versatile for a coach, but still super, super tiny. Those are versions. And then I've got like bits and pieces of, electronic PCBs on my desk that varying states of function. Um, yeah.
You're like a mad scientist over there a little bit.
just a little, controlled. It's controlled.
Where does so let's explain the technology to me a little bit. Because you're naming things or like saying different terms and this is kind of going over my head. I'm like, when I hear player data, I want to know how it's going to make me better, how it's going to make me perform better. How does it perform? Like what technology does it use and how does it use technology to help me enhance my performance?
Yeah, so I think that the best way to answer this is to give you sort of the landscape of how you would do indoor tracking at the moment. So there's really two ways to do it at the moment. You can use units. You can wear units that have IMUs. So these are units that essentially have accelerometers in them that can measure sort of steps, movements, kinetic movements, but they can tell you sort of what you did, but they can't tell you where you did it because it doesn't have location in it. It just tells you
Mm.
movement. And then on the very, very high end, you get certain facilities that we'll get something installed in the facility. A contractor will come in, they'll install these sort of big beacons. They'll be wired up, cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then you get effectively what's in the industry called LPS, which is kind of like GPS, but indoors. There's like indoor satellites tracking your position. And you can get distance, speed, acceleration. You can get what you did, where you did it. Now,
I'm listening. Sorry, go ahead.
So now, what PlayerData, what we did was okay, we want the experience of that installed LPS. We want the experience, the $100,000 experience, but we want to make it accessible and affordable and easy to use. In the perfect world, what would be the user flow for that? So a coach should be able to turn up. They should be able to put little anchors, so the little sort of locating the satellites around the court, around the field. It will just magically auto set up, and we track you inside the space. And you could turn up to any space, spend 5 minutes setting it up, and we'll start tracking you. No contractors, no installing. You can just turn up to any space that you've never been to and start having sort of satellites indoors. And that's what we built, essentially.
But you're putting a big emphasis, I've noticed, on the indoors. Explain to me why the emphasis on indoor, and then what's indoor versus outdoor, or is there a difference?
Yeah, so currently outdoors, our main product, the product that we have in the market that we serve our users with is our outdoor athlete trackers that use and rely on GPS. So outdoors, because you have a clear view of the sky, we can position you with GPS. Now, the moment you go inside and you have a metal roof on, you lose that GPS. We can't locate you anymore. So our indoor system, by putting these little pucks around, these little anchors, we let you bring the satellites indoors and track yourself.
So if I have the indoor system set up at my program, do I still need like the vest device on my athletes as well to ensure that it's picking up, or does it naturally pick up their movements?
Yeah, so the athletes will still wear the vest. The coach just has to set up the little anchors before the session.
Nice. How was I guess what drove the emphasis on doing indoor?
Yeah, so when we grew up as a company, we started here in Scotland, grew across the whole UK. Now the weather here is a lot more predictable. It is you can basically train outside all year round. So we didn't have a need to develop an indoor system. Now, when we started selling in the US and grew our US team, there's so many different locations where half the year it's snowing outside. The athletes got to go indoors, and the coaches are calling us and going, "Hey, look, we really want a way to track our athletes indoors. We're missing sort of half our data. Can you guys work out a solution for us?" And we don't have the budget, and we don't have the time to use something that costs $100K or more.
Nice.
And yeah, that was a motivation behind solving this problem.
How do you all make the data digestible for the end user? If I'm said athlete at said school, said program, if I'm looking at all this, how do I know which metrics to look at? Do you guys like teach said coaches or players how to digest the data? How does that process work?
That's a really good question. Now, so again, sort of one of the benefits of being an outsider to sport is that we didn't come into this industry with sort of preconceived notions on how you should coach or what metrics make sense. So what we do is when we're developing products, we spend a lot of time with coaches. And what we're trying to understand as engineers, as the people building the product, is now you're telling me you're telling me you can tell me what your problems are. What we want to understand is actually sort of what is the underlying problem to the problem. What do you actually want as a user? Because then we can use all our knowledge and the tech that we have to actually solve it. So by doing that and by having sort of wide access to different types of different levels of coaches, we've been able to work with our UI engineers to build a really simple and easy to use app with core metrics that every coach can understand, laid out in a way that sort of intuitively makes sense. Let's say that a coach wants to is focusing on the physical side. They're trying to bring players up and not overtrain them before the match. The screen, they naturally go to sort of the loading screen in the app and the session to see all the distances and the high speeds and the sprints that the athletes are doing, and that sort of that screen gives them all information to inform decision making. Let's flip to a different day. Let's say it's post match. We have a whole heat maps tab and a tactile tab that guides the coach through the whole sort of what each athlete did, where they ran on the pitch, how much time they spent on it, lets them play back all the player movements during the match so they can sort of match up with video. So again, naturally sort of segmented, and the app's essentially designed to answer the coach's questions and help them communicate to the athletes to help them get better.
What have you learned, knowing that you didn't grow up, I guess, kind of playing sport? What are you surprised that you learned about sport now that you didn't before? Like, if you look back at your younger self, like, man, I would have never thought I would know this about sport.
It's just, I really wasn't exposed to sport when I was growing up. Like the thing that I actually sort of regret and miss growing up is and not being able to experience it. And the thing that always passes on is the amount of passion people have for their sport, and it extends across the levels. You have athletes and coaches who are just as passionate as at the amateur level about the game that they're playing as the professionals that we work in sort of in the Premier League. It's the same passion, the same signature, and that is just incredible to see.
Knowing that, is that also kind of what helps drive you to make sure that the product is good for at the professional level all the way down to grassroots?
Yeah. But I think the biggest thing for me is that it's being able to see the emails come in, see the feedback that we get from not just the professional coaches, but also the coaches that are the parents that are coaching their youth team, the amateurs that are trying to win their Sunday game. It is really that seeing the impact across the levels is incredibly rewarding.
Well, Roy, I want to appreciate you for your time, and good luck to building the next product for the athletes of tomorrow.
No, thank you so much. Real pleasure to speak with you.